Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we're the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you
Sometimes we agree.
think. Sometimes we don't.
This is News and View.
And here are today's headlines.
Former Department of Public Works and Highways Undersecretary Maria Catalina Cabral was found dead at the foot of a cliff along Cannon Road in Tuba, Benguet.
The warrant of arrest for controversial public works contractor Sara Diskaya has been issued.
The LTFRB has moved the implementation of the surge pricing cap to December 20, 3 days later than the initial date.
Now, authorities are probing the movements of the father and son suspects in the Bondi Beach shooting after confirming they were in Davao City weeks before the attack.
First in the news, the National Bureau of Investigation has arrested embattled contractor Sara Diskaya following the issuance of a warrant of arrest. Here's the report.
Ang 96.5 million na Ghost Flood Project sa Davao Occidental, naglabas na ng warrant of arrest ang korte laban sa 10 pangunahing sangkot dito sa anomalyang ito.
A court has issued arrest warrants against 10 key individuals involved in the alleged 96.5 million peso Ghost Flood Control Project in Davao Occidental. President Bongbong Marcos confirmed that the warrants were released against the primary respondents in the anomaly involving the flood control project.
Ng warrants na ito ay recorded gamit ang body-worn camera.
Among those charged is contractor Sara Diskaya, who is facing cases of graft and malversation.
Ito pong mga kasong ito, hindi po bailable ito. Hindi pwedeng bayaran ang kanilang para sila makalabas sa kulungan. Kabilang na po rito si Sara Diskaya.
Based on a copy of the arrest warrant, the charge of malversation of public funds and property against Diskaya and 9 others is non-bailable. Meanwhile, the graft charge is bailable with bail set at 90,000 pesos each. Diskaya is currently under the custody of the National Bureau of Investigation after voluntarily surrendering even before an arrest warrant had been issued last week. Earlier, her camp claimed that the Davao Occidental project was completed and was not a ghost project. Aside from Diskaya, 8 DPWH officials have also expressed intent to surrender.
Simula lang po ito at patuloy namin imbestigahan at kakasuhan lahat po ng may kinalaman sa mga iskandalo na nakikita natin sa mga flood control project. At titiyakin po natin na hindi lamang sila ay makakasuhan, kundi maibalik ang pera.
The issuance of the first arrest warrant follows the president's earlier promise that people would go to jail for corruption before Christmas. Previously, Ombudsman Boying Rimulya also vowed to issue arrest warrants against high-profile personalities involved in the anomaly. More names are expected to surface in the flood control scandal. According to DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon, more than 80 names have been submitted to the Ombudsman for investigation. He added that former House Speaker Martin Romualdez was allegedly among those included. However, Romualdez's lawyer denied the claim.
It is not true. We respect due process and will await the Ombudsman to independently evaluate the submissions based on evidence, not press conference soundbites.
There has been no new statement yet from the Department of Public Works and Highways. But in January, the agency, together with the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, is expected to submit its own recommendations to the Ombudsman following its investigation into flood control projects in Cebu. For News 5, Dave Abuel, We Are One News.
Former DPWH Undersecretary Maria Catalina Cabral was found dead at the foot of a cliff along Cannon Road in Tuba, Benguet on December 18. Rescuers discovered her unconscious near the Buwed River around 20 to 30 meters below the highway, and she was pronounced dead shortly after midnight on December 19. Police said Cabral had been traveling with her driver to La Union when she asked to be dropped off along Cannon Road in the Camp 5 area. When the driver returned about 2 hours later and could no longer locate her, he reported the incident, prompting a search operation. Upon news of Cabral's recovery, the Office of the Ombudsman directed Benguet authorities to take custody of and preserve her cell phone and other gadgets. Cabral was one of the DPWH officials implicated in the flood control project scandal. Meanwhile, in a statement, the DPWH extends its condolences and prayers to the family of Cabral. The department also urges the public to respect the family's need for privacy during this difficult time.
The Makabayan Bloc will be voting against the ratification of the 2026 General Appropriations Bill. ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino criticized the budget for still containing pork items that undermine transparency and accountability. Akbayan Party List Representative Percy Sandanya also raised concerns over on-program appropriations and the 8 billion peso allocation for NTF-LCAC, which he says encourages red tagging and patronage politics. Akbayan Representative Chel Jokno meanwhile called for full disclosure, noting that while the bicameral committee discussions were live-streamed, the process of budget adjustments was not.
Yung sistema ng mga alokasyon sa mga kongresista at maging sa mga senador ay nandyan pa rin, no? Both para sa infrastructure at para sa ayuda. Ang mga kababayan natin nagagalit na sa sistema na yung medical services, yung social welfare services, kailangang idaan pa sa politiko. No? Dapat i-abolish na ito and instead, pondohan talaga ng sapat ang ating health system, ang ating social welfare services at iba pa. Nananatili pa rin yung unprogrammed appropriations, di ba? Ayaw tanggalin.
Yung inaasahan natin ng mga problematic items na sana itatanggalin, i-cure, babawasan o tatapyasan pagdating ng bicameral conference, either napalampas o nadagdagan pa.
Joining us now to give insights on these recent developments is political pundit Ronald Llamas. Good morning, Sec. Ronald. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, good morning! Merry Christmas!
Baliktari ko pala, political heckler. Yun.
Yan.
Alright.
Pwede rin The Grinch.
Alright, Sec. Reaction natin sa paglabas ng arrest warrant kay Sara Diskaya. Ito na ba to? Yung iniintay daw ng iba? Makukulong na?
Well, lahat yan inaasahan dahil sabi nila magkakaso sila nung December 15. Diba? Medyo naghintay tayo ng December 15, wala naman tayong nakita. Tapos sabi nila, magpapakulong sila before Christmas. So maganda, sana ito na yung simula. Ang nababalitaan ko, meron pang ibang makukulong before Christmas. No? So, pero malapit na, ilang araw na lamang. Sana madaliin nila.
Pero yung nababalitaan mo, Sec, ano ba to? Malaking isda to or ano to, hibi?
Well, ang alam ko, merong ex-senators na makukulong. No?
Ilan na ba ex-senators implicated?
Ilang mga opisyal ng gobyerno, mga kontraktor, makukulong. No? Pero until it happens, it didn't happen. No? Kaya hintayin natin. Ang wala akong nababalitaan ay merong sitting senator na makukulong.
Wala pa.
Wala pa nababalitaan.
Pero sabi nga ni Secretary Vince Dizon 2 days ago, inulit niya yung mga nakasuhan. At kasama ron, yung mga matataas na opisyal ng gobyerno. Kasama ron ay mga at least 3 na sitting senators. No? In-announce na yan 2 days ago. Mukhang marami nagalit kay Secretary Vince Dizon.
Well, a lot of names have appeared dito sa tinatawag nga na flood control scandal. Pero hindi rin naman lahat nasasampahan ng kaso or yung iba medyo nalilihis yung impormasyon. Tulad na lamang po nitong usapin sa isa sa mga cabinet members dati ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, which is si Lucas Bersamin and Amina Pangandaman. No? So parang right now, things are quiet for them. What are your reactions to that?
Duda ako kung makakasuhan sila. Dahil masyado silang maraming alam. No?
Ganun ba yun?
Ang hindi ko sigurado ay kung makakasuhan yung kanilang mga tao. No? Halimbawa, na-link si Secretary Pangandaman kay Undersecretary Traigib ng DepEd. Na-link din si Secretary Bersamin dito sa kanyang grandnephew, no? Kay Adrian Bersamin. No? So, kung makakasuhan itong kanilang mga tao, baka dumikit sa kanila yung kaso. No, pero kahit
Pero
kasi
these two, malabo.
yung mga yan hindi pa nakakasuhan eh.
Yes.
Kahit binanggit yan sa Senate hearing ng mga whistleblowers
Oho.
galing sa DPWH.
So do you think may
So-
protection for them?
Well, pwede ko silang bigyan ng benefit of the doubt. No? Pero very glaring kasi yung evidence laban sa kanila. Kung sakaling hindi sila makakasuhan. No? Dahil ang announcement naman ay makakasuhan lahat. Well, titignan natin in the next 2 months. Kung hindi makakasuhan, ay sasabog yan sa mukha ng gobyerno.
Right.
Sasabog yan sa mukha ng presidente na parang mga small fish lamang yung makakasuhan.
Oo nga.
Tsaka hindi mga kaalyado.
Oo nga, Sek, yun ang tinatanong ng marami regarding kay Secretary Pangandaman et al. No? At the very least ba, ano nababalitaan mo, kung wala man direct involvement sa itong organized syndicated corruption system, did she turn a blind eye to what was happening? Alam ba niya na may nangyayari at the very least?
Well, at the very least, guilty siya ng culpability. Diba? Dahil under your watch. Diba? Kaya hindi pwedeng wala siyang alam. Hindi pwede siyang wala siyang alam. Kaya at the very least, culpable siya rin.
So may alam siya, tsaka si
If not directly involved.
pati si
If not
ES.
directly involved. Dahil ang lalaki ng pondo eh. Ang lalaki ng pondo eh. Na dumadaan sa kanya papunta dito sa mga corrupt officials na ito. No? Pero yung budget secretary kasi at saka yung executive secretary, napakalapit niyan sa presidente.
Exactly.
No? Yan yung pinaka-importante sa kabinete.
Yes.
Diba?
Oo.
So, ano nangyayari kung mismo sila ay involved?
Exactly.
No?
Pero
Si Undersecretary Bernardo, twice niyang binanggit si E.S. Bersamin. Yung una niyang testimony at saka itong pinakahuli. So at the very least, kailangan investigahan niyang maigi.
Pero until now,
Tapos, ngayon
Go
pa, namatay pa ito si Cabral.
yeah.
Ang tingin kay Cabral, siya yung linchpin
Insertion
dito sa
queen.
sindikato, sa DPWH. Siya yung pinakamaraming alam. Sa kanya dumadaan yung mga plano na yan. No? At sabi nga ni Senate President Soto dati na mismo yung pagpasok ng insertion sa NEP, si Cabral ay involved. Dahil si Cabral yung kumausap sa kanya, tinatanong siya kung meron siyang gusto ipasok na 500 million dun sa NEP. No? NEP pa lang
Hindi pa lang.
No? NEP pa lang. So, ibig sabihin, ito si Cabral, marami itong alam. Hindi lamang sa insertions after NEP, kundi even before. No? Unfortunately, siya ay pumanaw
Yeah.
under suspicious circumstances. Parang Netflix
Parang
miniseries.
pelikula.
Oo nga, this whole, Sec Ronald, parang
The plot
you're
thickens.
correct, no? Yung Netflix miniseries. So, ang tanong dito, since binanggit mo si the late Secretary Yusek Cabral, anong impact nito ngayon sa kaso with regards to yung iba pang kakasuhan?
Well, ang hinihintay ko ay lahat ng involved ay isisi sa kanya lahat. Paano hindi na siya pwedeng sumagot? No? Parang siya na yung gamiting fall guy. Conveniently, dahil patay na siya. No? Pwedeng sabihin nila, ay wala kaming kinalaman dyan. Si Secretary Cabral yan.
Yeah.
Kaya mahalaga na una, balikan yung detalye paano siya pumanaw. Marami namang CCTV dyan sa
Right.
gilid-gilid.
Oh, sa Camp 5
Diba?
yan.
Sino ba yung kasama niya doon sa hotel sa Baguio? Diba? Yung mga ganong klaseng forensic investigation.
Yeah. Sino huling nakakita sa kanyang buhay?
Lahat ng pinirmahan niya sa DPWH, dapat i-consolidate siya. Baka masunog. Baka masunog. Alam naman natin na yung mga ebidensya na susunog.
Biglang nasusunog.
Kunin na kagad lahat yan. Lahat ng pinirmahan niya. At i-check yan. Maigi. Saan napunta, sinong kumausap, etc. etc. I'm very sure, 100% sure, yung ebidensya ay nandyan sa mga papeles ni Yusek Cabral. No? Kahit pumanaw na siya. Kung yan ay mawawala pa, talagang sobra ng mini-series yan.
Ika nga,
No?
Sec
Sobra
Ronald,
na.
speaking from beyond the grave, yung natitirang evidence.
Yes, correct. No?
Okay.
Dahil nga sabi ko, siya yung susi, siya yung linchpin. Siya yung head ng planning for more than a decade. So, alam niya lahat yan, na dumadaan yung bilyon-bilyon na yan.
Well, she was supposed to appear, 'di ba, sa ICI
ICI.
investigation, pero hindi siya nagpunta eh. And then yun nga nagpunta pala siya sa Baguio. But I want to talk about also yung BICAM na na-approve na siya recently, pero of course there will be ratification and hopefully sabi nila by 29 or 30 mapunta na kay PBBM. Do you think magkakaroon mga may i-veto dito si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos base doon sa mga nakikita natin na napagkasunduan sa BICAM?
Well, sana. Dahil, yes, maganda dito sa BICAM ay very open na. Nakikita na natin as it happened. Diba? Pero, ang dami rin ang daming caucuses, ang daming break na hindi natin naririnig yung pinag-uusapan. Ano ba yung pinag-uusapan doon pag may break?
Oo.
Ano ba yung bulong-bulungan doon?
Pag naka-off
Sana
yung
pati
mic.
yun ay makover. No? Dahil usually, dyan maraming nangyayari. No? Ikalawa ay katulad nga ng sinabi ni Congressman Percy Sendanya kanina dito sa report nyo, ang dami pa ring pork na naiwan eh. Yung unprogrammed fund na more than 240 billion
That's right.
na propose ng House ay nanatili. Nag-fail yung Senate, tatanggalin yan. Ang sabi ng Senate dati, tatanggalin nila lahat yan,
Yes.
di ba? Hindi nila natanggal. Although, marami rin dito ay naging soft pork. No? Halimbawa, yung MyFIP,
Maifip.
from 24 billion, naging 51 billion.
AIX.
Yung AIX, from 27 billion, naging 64 billion. Yung TUPAD, from 12 billion, naging 25 billion. Diba? Yung Local Government Support Fund, from 16 billion, naging 48 billion, etc. etc. Tapos yung mga farm-to-market road, ibinigay sa DA, at yung pagpapatayo ng mga eskwelahan, binigay sa DepEd. Hindi ko alam kung kaya nilang gawin yun dahil punong-puno na rin sila ng trabaho. At ang daming trabaho ng DA dahil sila yung nagdadrag sa ating economy pababa eh. Diba? Negative eh, yung ating growth rate sa agriculture. So ang dami nilang problema. Tapos sa kanila mo pa ipapagawa itong corruption-tainted farm-to-market road. No? Tapos yung deficit natin sa mga eskwelahan, ang laki. Panyata yan, 80,000-90,000 schools ang kulang. Eh, ang dami ng problema ng DepEd. Bagsak yung ating learning poverty, bagsak yung ating PISA. Tapos ipapasa mo sa kanila yung napakalaking trabaho na yan. So, yung mga ganun ba, kailangan busisiin ang husto yan ng presidente.
Yeah.
Para alam niya kung ano yung kanyang ibibito o hindi.
Well, patuloy tayo mag-aabang diyan sa budget na yan. Tingnan natin kung talaga bang, ano ba, sabi nila kasi nilililisin nila. Pero yun nga, ang dami mga pork.
Saka kung may masaga pa si Sec Ronald na balita, di ba?
Yeah. We have so much questions, kaya lang wala tayong time.
May bago kaming tawag kay Sec Ronald,
Ano?
political marites.
Ay.
Well,
we hope
hinihintay
to-
natin yung cabinet revamp.
Yun nga.
May
din.
kaya kami,
Hinihintay
Sec, ha?
natin. Alam natin, nakaamba yan eh.
Yes, oo. Well, we hope we could invite you again, no? Kasi wala na po tayong time ngayon. We have so much question. But for the meantime, maraming salamat po sa inyong insights, political pundit Ronald Llamas.
Salamat din.
Philippine Fencing Association President Rene Gacuma says he is considering legal action against Congressman Richard Gomez over alleged physical and verbal abuse. Here's the report.
The president of the Philippine Fencing Association has accused later Representative Richard Gomez of physically and verbally attacking him. Rene Gacuma said the incident occurred on December 16 at Fashion Island, the official fencing venue for the 2025 Southeast Asian Games. Gomez, who is also a PFA director and second vice president of the Philippine Olympic Committee, allegedly confronted Gacuma over the replacement of national athlete Alexa Larrazabal in the women's individual EPEE event. Gacuma added that Gomez later struck his jaw while he was seated at the medical station. In an interview with The Big Story, Gacuma called the lawmaker's behavior highly unbecoming for a public official and said he is now seeking legal advice.
I do not deserve this. It was so unbecoming, I would just say, of a public servant. I did not say anything. I did not fight back because I was not raised that well.
Meanwhile, speaking to 1PH's One Balita Pilipinas, Gomez accused Gacuma and others of bullying Larrazabal and stated that he plans to file a complaint regarding the alleged misconduct. He also added that he has no objection if Gakuma decides to press charges of physical assault.
Never nangyari sa amin yan. Na ikaw yung number one fencer, biglang hindi ka palalaruin. Only to favor yung favorite nila na number 4 na individual, yun ang favorite nila. When the country is fighting for a medal, bakit pa ipapasok yung mas mahina na player?
Philippine Olympic Committee President Bambol Tolentino told 1PH sa Totoo Lang that the two should settle the matter privately instead of letting it escalate further.
I think the best solution din, mag-usap muna sila.
Yes.
Nasa Bible yan, mag-usap muna kayo.
Well, I think for Mr. Gakuma, when he was interviewed, sabi niya parang magpa-file pa rin talaga siya ng cases.
Granted may issue nga with regards to, granted, sabihin na natin,
there's a truth in that
if
accusation.
there is truth to that accusation about the favoritism,
Let's say.
okay, that is the issue at hand. Ang nangyayari kasi daw ginagawa ni Congressman Richard Gomez, he's bringing out another issue to counter the current issue. May validity nga kunyari, but you deal with it in a way na a congressman would deal with it. Hindi mo yung 6'2" ka, athlete ka dati, babatukan mo ang isang matanda na may sakit na pinagdadaanan. Di ba? That is not, that is...
Kaya nga sabi nga nila, well, if there's truth in that accusation, but the moment he hit that guy, he just lost his
diba,
argument.
Sabi, galit na galit si Congo na they're bullying daw the number 1. Yung ginawa ni Kong Richard, he just bullied an old man. It's the same thing that they are doing. Sana, ang pwedeng gawin ni Congressman Gomez, pwede niyang kasuhan or mag-investigate yung pangyayari dyan. If historically may nangyayari naman kasi talagang mga
kasi
ganyan.
There are also questions na, okay, so sabi nila may mga attendance problems or issues, requirement issues, itong si number 1 fencing player ng Philippines. Pero bakit sinama pa rin nila sa SEA Games? Yun yung kanyang side ni Congressman Richard Gomez. But of course, syempre, we want to know also bakit nga naman nagkaganoon, di ba?
Yeah, but
pero
the
issue here,
it could have been raised in proper forum. The issue here is yung batok. Tsaka sabi ni Congressman Richard Gomez,
why do you feel the need
daw,
na saktan yun?
He was there daw as an athlete and a former Olympian, not daw as a congressman. But you cannot take off that congressman hat. Wherever you go, you're an elected official. Yan ang sinasabi ni Iga.
Tsaka also, we want to know if there's truth also dun sa allegation ni Mr. Gakuma na sa phone, he said, I think that a lot of people heard it, na sinabi daw ni Congressman Richard Gomez na baka tanggalan na lang sila ng budget, diba? And he was asked about it, si Congressman Richard Gomez, if he uttered that word. I think he didn't answer that directly.
He didn't answer it directly, but he was medyo angry sa interview.
During an interview.
Well, I hope this gets resolved soon because sports to I mean, di ba, we're in the middle of the SEA Games, tapos may gulo nangyari. Basta if there's an issue within the way
baka may
athletes
kailangan
are handled,
ayusin dun sa sistema, doon sa nirereklamo niya. But then again,
that was a different issue. Basta the issue was, binatukan mo ang isang tao. They could have, di ba, yung word nga ni Sabal ni Bambol Tolentino, pag-usapan nyo yan. Dapat from the start, itong issue ng favoritism sa athlete, dapat pinag-usapan, hindi nagbatukan.
Pero like what I've said, sa side ni Mr. Gakuma, I think he's going to push through with his complaint filing cases, and I think he's also going to file ethics complaint
sa
Congress.
Well, I hope this gets resolved soon because it's not nice to see things like this happening sa sports.
Yeah.
All right,
we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board has moved the implementation of the surge pricing cap for transport network vehicle services to December 20. LTFRB Chairperson Vigor Mendoza II said the agency recognizes the need for ride-hailing companies to adjust to the new surge pricing cap. And to ease the impact of the surge pricing cap, the agency also allowed ride-hailing services to start charging passengers once a booking is accepted rather than from the pickup point. Under a memorandum circular dated December 17, the distance from the driver's booking acceptance location to the passenger's pickup point will now count as a chargeable distance. Meanwhile, after months of delays, the EDSA rehabilitation is set to begin on Christmas Eve. The project will be carried out in 2 phases, each lasting 4 months.
Baka madami mag-react doon na sinasabi nila na tanggap ang booking mo, na-charge ka na, magmamahal siya ng konti, pero ang positive dito for commuters is yung mga drivers na dating hindi nag-accept dahil sabi nila mahirap pumasok dyan sa bahay, hindi ko na susunduin, hindi ko na i-accept to. Kasi di ba madaming hindi nag-accept.
Bawal na yun
I'm saying, pag lumabas sa system, hindi nila ina-accept. Ngayon, since nasa-charge ka na from the distance na pag in-accept mo, may mga drivers na may engganyo na, yung biyahe ko paloob, kunyari ng isang subdivision, matcha-charge na yung kilometers nun. So, gaganahan na si driver to go and continue with the booking. May mga ganun na. But of course, 2 sides to the story. And grabe kasi yung surge pricing ngayon.
Yes.
Ang laki. Pero at least it's nice to know na some companies, transport network companies, are going to shoulder daw the surge cost para hindi maapektuhan yung pricing sa atin, hindi rin maapektuhan sa driver.
Pero hindi lahat ng TNC
Hindi nga, but it's a good step there na if some TNCs can do it, others can.
Well, we want to know kung ano yung, of course, reaction dito ng mga TNVS group, especially yung si June De Leon, di ba nakausap natin siya dito?
Yes, baka magsimula yung
Oo, kasi yun nga, ayaw nila itong gagawin dahil lugi nga sa kanila, taking into account or into consideration yung, of course, yung heavy traffic na yung rush hours, and of course yung mataas na cost ng fuel. Diba? So yun ang talagang nakikita nilang dahilan kung bakit ayaw nila. And they threatened nga na offline sila pag rush hour to make sure maipadala nila yung mensahe nila that they are against this new memorandum circular. But yun nga, December 20 na urong dahil nga may mga panibagong adjustment, and okay ba to sa panig nila? Kasi the day before sila nag-usap, we were talking to June, diba? De Leon, yung presidente ng Laban TNVS, and he said they're gonna have a dialogue with LTFRB regarding this. So I think ito yung pag-usapan nila.
All right, Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation will implement free toll on its Luzon Expressway network during select hours over the Christmas and New Year holidays. Toll fees will be waived on NLEX, SCTX, NLEX, Connector, Cavitex, and Calax from 10 p.m. on December 24 to 6 a.m. on December 25. And from 10 p.m. on December 31 to 6 a.m. on January 1. A toll-free period is part of MPTC's broader holiday traffic management plan, which includes full manpower deployment, free towing services, barrier-up operations, counterflow lanes where needed, and standby traffic and emergency teams. MPTC Chairman Manuel V. Pangilinan said the goal is to reduce travel time and allow motorists to spend more time with their families. Maganda yan kasi since libre and kunyari may family ka, you're with your family, with your husband and wife, and you wanna visit your mom and dad, di ba, across tadaan ka ng NLEX, libre na. At saka barrier up. So, hindi na eliminate yung pila sa toll gate.
Depende niya magkano yung mga toll gate.
Pangdagdag sa
100 plus,
pangdagdag sa 500 na Noche Buena para sa kabilang kung lilipat ka sa mami o daddy mo, magagamit mo sa iba.
Well, parang time and again naman na ang MPTC nag-waive yan ng mga fees nila kapag holiday, and then there are certain significant events.
Para
diba? Na may certain time na wini-waive nila.
Magkano kaya tayo? Multiple round trip sa mga oras na yan para mapakinabangan natin yung libre.
Tapos, naubos naman yung gas mo.
Bawi naman sa toll gate.
Okay.
Toll fee pala, sa toll fee.
But anyway, in other news, more than 300 Filipinos are currently stranded at the Thai-Cambodia border amid rising tensions. Over 50 of them are victims of scam farms in Cambodia, while more than 200 are teachers. Here is the report.
Some Filipinos in Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos were forced to flee scam farms amid rising tensions in the region. According to the Department of Migrant Workers, 56 scam victims have been rescued, with 22 scheduled to return home this week.
There will be a group coming home, 22, of the 56, 22 ang makaka-uwi within this week.
Meanwhile, Filipinos stranded in Thailand are not scam victims but were caught in the conflict between Thailand and Cambodia. They are currently safe in evacuation areas, although repatriation plans remain uncertain.
But will they be repatriated? Remains to be seen at this stage kasi they are teachers and not teaching personnel in schools along the Thai border with Cambodia. So obviously, pag tumila o humupa ang sitwasyon, they may be able to go back to their respective teaching institutions.
Since January, over 2,000 Filipino scam hub victims have been repatriated from Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos. The scam hub industry continues to be a top priority for the DMW and DOJ due to the high number of Filipinos affected. In line with International Migrants Day, authorities have launched a one-stop help desk to assist Filipino victims of human trafficking.
So kung traffic sila sa ibang bansa, kami na yung unang magre-reach out sa DFA. Kung dito naman local trafficking, no, kami rin yung may access to the regional task forces and law enforcement units. So kami rin yung magre-refer sa appropriate body.
The DOJ also reported that 28 cases have been filed against Filipino recruiters involved in trafficking. For News 5, Rainiel Pawid, we are One News.
Right, former Public Works Secretary Manuel Bonoan has yet to return to the Philippines despite his legal counsel's commitment that he would be back by December 17. The Bureau of Immigration confirmed there is no record of his arrival. Bonoan left on November 11 for the United States to accompany his wife for a medical procedure. He departed amid probes into alleged irregularities in flood control projects.
Ito yung pinag-usapan December 17, I remember
ito yung pinag-usapan natin 2-3 weeks ago na sige, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, hintayin natin bumalik. Kasi di ba madami nang si chismis, tumakbo na naman. Pero sabi ng iba, hindi, ano lang, may talagang medical reason yung wife.
And
ngayon,
we cannot do anything about it because wala pa siyang kaso. Diba? Yan yung sinasabi natin, bakit ang tagal mag-file ng kaso, etc. So,
ngayon,
kung
wala
makaalis
pa
siya ng bansa, wala tayong magawa dahil hindi siya pwedeng i-hold.
Pero it's what, December 19, 2 days after yung supposed arrival. Usually may mga delays na. Let's give a few more days. Pero kung wala yan...
Bait mo naman.
No. Ganun naman talaga yan eh. Pag by Christmas wala na, then you could make the assumption na, teka lang, tumatakbo na ito. Diba?
Well, for context, si Bonoan po ay former DPWH Secretary under the PBBM administration and recently nga po na-involved siya, isa siya sa mga allegedly involved dito sa flood control scandal and meron din siyang anak na allegedly din kasama sa yung mga contracting business na nag-grant. So, and prior to his resignation sa DPWH, nagtatag siya ng parang independent body to investigate DPWH officials. And a lot of people talaga nag-react regarding this. Imbestigahan mo yung sarili ninyo. Diba? So that's the time. Weekend yun mga Sunday if I'm not mistaken. And the next day, we heard the news that he resigned already.
Ayun, so nakita niyo yung video, no? Si Yusek Cabral, well, of course, condolences to the family na nawala. And now, si Secretary Bonoan, former Secretary Bonoan is wala. You have key players already missing. Which could, sabi nga ni former Secretary Ronald Llamas, mangi-impact talaga yung case.
Sa investigation nila.
Because these are key people who could shed light into what happened.
Ang meron lang tayo ngayon, ang nakita natin na development dito sa flood control scandal na ito ay yung sinasabi nga ni PBBM yesterday na naglabas na ng arrest warrant at alam naman natin na kahapon surrender na itong si Sara Diskaya. Diba? Nasa NBI facility pa rin siya because she will be flown to Davao or Cebu if I'm not mistaken kasi nandun yung kaso na na-move. Okay. So there are 2 cases na final sa kanya, yung isa non-bailable, yung isa kasi bailable. And of course, a lot of people are asking also asan na yung asawa niya. Yung asawa niya ay nasa Senado pa rin nakadetain, ano? And
Curly.
Oo, I think kasama pa rin siya sa mga kakasuhan and until nawala pa rin naman yung mga warrant of arrest. And a lot of people are still waiting doon sa mga malalaking pangalan, 'di ba, na involved dito sa flood control project na ito.
The big fish, kumbaga, 'di ba? Ayaw natin ng dilis, gusto natin ng bangus. Manugutom tuloy ako. Alright, don't go away. We're not done yet. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
Authorities are investigating the movements of the father and son suspects in the Bondi Beach shooting after confirming they were in Davao City weeks before the attack in Australia. The Bureau of Immigration reported that they were in the Philippines from November 1 to 28 and listed Davao as their final destination, though police are still verifying their actual presence in the city. Officials are also looking into whether the suspects met anyone during their stay. Records show they stayed at a budget hotel on Magallanes Street, where staff said they extended their booking weekly and seemed like ordinary guests. Police have secured CCTV footage and hotel records as part of the ongoing investigation.
Joining us now is Dr. Romel Banlawi, Chairman of the Philippine Institute for Peace, Violence, and Terrorism Research. Good morning, Doc, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, Angelo, and good morning, Angela.
All right, ano pong, Doc, let's get right to it. What is the impact nitong confirmation na, oo nga, yung suspects nitong sa Bondi Beach shooting ay nasa Philippines weeks before they committed these acts of terrorism?
Apparently, the Philippines is back in the radar screen of counterterrorism in the world. Before, we thought that terrorism is almost over as a result of tremendous decline of terrorist attacks in the Philippines since the aftermath of Marawi siege in 2017. And for the past 2 years, there was no recorded violent or terrorist incidents in the Philippines coming from either Abu Sayyaf group or Mauti group or remnants of the Ulaya Islamiyah groups. But now we're back in the radar screen. We are in the spotlight again of terrorism issues.
So sa tingin nyo, Doc, malamang nag-train sila dito?
Well, I just received information that they were already trained in gunfighting prior to their visit to the Philippines, and they have already been radicalized before visiting the Philippines. So my hunch is that they went to the Philippines with a different agenda, and I'm sure they did not come to the Philippines just to spend vacation, just for leisure. And the mere fact that they extended their stay weekly, that means that they were negotiating or they were dealing with somebody or something, because otherwise they would not have extended their stay if they have accomplished their mission yet.
But
for me, spending 27 days without a family or relatives in any country is a long time.
That's right. Tama kayo, Doc.
Yeah.
Pero upon the investigation, ang sabi nila hindi daw po lumabas ng hotel eh.
No, I received information that they went out, but not more than 30 minutes. And then they come back again. Yeah.
Yun nga po, no? So, I'm sure we're all aware of the allegations by the international community that the Philippines daw is a militant haven. Pero in a defense perspective, or dahil ito naman po yung inyong alam, eksperto po kayo dito, is 3 to 4 weeks enough for a military training? Or militant training, rather?
Trained na daw sila.
As I said, they were already trained before coming to the Philippines. They were trained in other countries that is considered to be terrorist influenced country. You know, one of the countries most impacted by terrorism.
Yes.
But if you will see, prior to the Bondi attack, the Philippines already ranked 20 in the ranking of Global Terrorism Index, and that is a remarkable progress on the part of the Philippine government. It's an achievement because in the past we were ranking always in the top 10 of country in the world most impacted by terrorism, but now it's 20. And but my argument in my various publication is that while terrorist threats in the Philippines are indeed diminishing, they are not, in fact, disappearing. You know, they have not been fully neutralized. There are still remnants hiding and on the run, but they can still wreak havoc. And the challenge for the Philippine government is to prevent them from pursuing their malevolent intentions.
I wanted to ask you, Doc, about if itong mag-ama na itong other link to a certain group, the IS, sinasabi nila. Parang nag-iiba na ata ang approach nila with terms of committing acts of terrorism. Kasi dito sa Bondi Beach, namili sila ng specific religious group, no? Kasi ang gawain dati ng mga terrorist massive, walang pinipili, anybody, basta they belong to a specific country, dun sila titira. Do you see them changing their tactics right now?
Yes, because a new phase of terrorism was unleashed after the Bondi attack. Before, the Islamic State had the intention of establishing Islamic Caliphate, you know.
Yes.
But now they made a new intention, and that is very specific, anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish agenda.
Okay.
And apparently in retaliation to the state of Israel's military activities against Hamas in Gaza.
And
so that's now the new phase of terror that we are witnessing right now, and I consider that as a new wave of terrorism, as a result of the Bondi attack. And that might inspire others all over the world to do similar things, because there are Jewish communities all over the world, and even in the Philippines, there are also small Jewish communities in the Philippines, and they needed to be protected.
So, Doc, should we be worried right now? Because you mentioned the new wave. I also read about it na patay na yung old ideology sa Philippines. But if there's a new wave or a new thinking that they have, could there be na they're setting up shop here? That's why itong mag-ama may meeting sila dito. The mere fact that they met or they're here, they must have met with someone and talked to someone. So that means may bagong grupo.
That's what we think. And apparently, the Bondi attack can serve as inspiration for others to follow suit, and we hope the Philippine government will prevent their sympathizers to mount similar attacks anywhere in the Philippines.
Well, ito pong watchdog na itong Climate Conflict Actions, meron po silang sinasabi na there are troubling signs and mobilization and polarization na nangyayari dito sa ating bansa, including recruiting the youth. Do we have information on that?
Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that. That though terrorist threats in the Philippines have declined, there are still emerging signs of resurgence of a new wave of violence as a result of continuing grievances of some Muslim militants dissatisfied with the implementation of the peace agreement of the Philippine government with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. And also considering the fact that still half of the combatants of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front has not been put under the commissioning program.
But how
so they are still active combatants.
But how do you think the government is handling this issue right now? Of course, there were issues denying this allegation, statement from the spokesperson of the AFP. But some people are saying, shouldn't the president also address this issue himself?
I agree with the official statement released by the Armed Forces of the Philippines and even by the National Security Council. I agree with their assessment that many of the groups right now are fragmented, and they lack central leadership that will provide them direction to mount terrorist attacks. But there are danger signs, especially the young people exposed to the nature of violence that they witness via social media against the Palestinians and Hamas in Gaza. And that is a new inspiration. That's the new wave of terrorism that I'm talking about. And we hope that this kind of wave will not affect the Philippines. That we need to shield. We need to shield our country against this new wave of terrorism happening in other parts of the world. That is why we need to sustain our effort to implement our counter-terrorism agenda or policy. In fact, we have an anti-terrorism law of 2020, and we can still use that very strong law that can prevent terror attacks, and we need to sustain that effort. And we need to double up our efforts involving the communities and the local government, because they are at the front line. So we need to continue that. In fact, prior to the Bondi attack, many local governments in Basilan, in Tulu, in Tawi-Tawi, they were already declaring their municipalities terrorism-free. Yeah. And rather than a destination for terrorism, they are now declaring their municipality as a most favored destination for tourism rather than terrorism. Okay. And we need to sustain that kind of effort. So yeah, that's why we need to pay attention to the implications of Bondi attacks for Philippines.
Well, it's good you mentioned, Doc, yung mga Basilan and other municipalities and cities sa area declaring themselves terrorism-free. But lastly, on my part, how important po is to, you mentioned we have a strong counter-terrorism law, but despite of having a strong law, if we don't secure daw our borders in that area, in the southern area, which is very porous, do you think na critical ito na we have to strengthen yung well, as I said, yung borders natin in the southern area kasi useless din kahit anong batas meron ka kung malulusutan ka lang?
I agree that we need to strengthen our defenses on our borders, but based on my study of the 2017 Marawi siege, many of the foreign terrorist fighters went through regular immigration procedures.
Okay.
Not through the back door. So I agree that we need to strengthen our defenses in our borders. But if we really want to prevent foreign terrorist fighters to come to the Philippines, we also need to strengthen our normal immigration procedures. Because 70% of the foreign terrorist fighters that participated during the 2017 Marawi siege entered the Philippines through regular immigration procedures.
Well, on my part, do you think, Prof, kung meron po bang parang security or intelligence lapses on our part, because these two, itong mag-ama na to, have stayed in our country for almost a month and without detection?
Yeah, in fact, some sectors are describing the incident as a failure of intelligence. But for me, there is no failure of intelligence. We lack intelligence. So there's no failure, but we lack intelligence, and that is why we're currently conducting investigations to gather evidences, to gather more intelligence. But prior to that, we lack intelligence, so there was no failure of intelligence. So now we are beefing up our intelligence information to have a better picture of what really happened and why they visited the Philippines, and how can we prevent this thing to happen again in the future.
Right. Oo, kasi we were talking about it yesterday also na we also found an information saying na itong anak pala was tagged in Australia years ago or months ago, if I'm not mistaken, pero parang nawala yung threat sa kanya.
Exactly sa pinag-usapan natin, we're reliant. There's no intelligence. We're reliant on another country informing us. So if we were not informed, wala tayong magagawa.
Yeah.
That's why our institute, Philippine Institute for Peace, Violence, and Terrorism Research, we don't rely on information coming from official sources. We gather our own information on the ground. That's why we generate our own database based on our independent data gathering matters. That is why every time there is an incident like the Bondi attack, I can say something because I continuously monitor situation on the ground. And in fact, the presence of the father and son in Davao City using a budget hotel reminded me of similar incident in 1995 when Ramsey Joseph used a budget hotel in Manila, the Don Josefa apartment, in order to plan the assassination of Pope John Paul II and carry out their plan to send the 11 jetliners that resulted in the 9/11 attack in 2001.
Well, we will continue.
So similar, it's like a deja vu to me. It's like a deja vu to me.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we'll continue to get in touch with you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much po for your time, Dr. Romel Banlawi, Chairman of the Philippine Institute for Peace, Violence, and Terrorism Research.
Well, fans can catch an early look at the Metro Manila Film Festival entry, Manila's Finest, before its official release on December 25. TV5 and 1PH are set to air a mini documentary, Behind the Badge, giving viewers a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the film. The documentary features exclusive interviews with the cast, including Piolo Pascual. Behind the Badge will air this Saturday at 9:15 p.m. on 1PH, with replay on Sunday at 11 a.m. on TV5. On One News, the Manila's Finest mini docu airs on Sunday, December 21 at 7:30 in the evening.
Now, as the year comes to a close, how did 2025 shape up for you? Join Edu Manzano as he takes a hard look at the good and the bad and the ugly of the year, from the stories that inspired hope to the issues that tested the nation. On Safe Ka Ba 2025, a year-ender special. Catch the premiere this Saturday, December 20 at 7 p.m. on One News. Watch on Signal Channel 250 HD, Channel 8 SD, or stream on Signal Play. Safe ka ba?
Nakita ko mga post ni Edu na nag-contractor outfit siya.
Oo, nagsusurf siya sa baha.
Alam mo naman yung...
Magulo ang 2025.
No, this is one of the
a lot
most...
of actions, actually, and issues.
From a newsroom perspective, this is one of the most active news years
Parang
for us.
every weekend may bagong
You had Duterte, this year, sa Duterte arrest, and then you have finding Bato, you have Teves na bumalik, na nahuli.
Of course, the flood control scandal.
And also yung mga sabongero, missing sabongeros.
And the wrath of Vice President Sara Duterte.
And of course, yung positioning sa budget.
Yes,
yung
madami. Insertions. And of course, yung 2025 budget is the most corrupt budget in the Philippine history. Diba? Isa yan sa mga pinag-usapan.
Well, that's what they claim, pero all they need to do is...
The rallies, of course, let's not forget the rallies against corruption.
Gusto ko i-recommend sa mga kabataan, research nila sa 1974, prior to martial law, how the budget was made. Corrupt din yun. Kasi it wasn't open to anyone.
Yeah.
A ruler made the budget on his own.
Well, abangan natin kung mapipirmahan ba ito ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, or kung may veto or re-enacted budget tayo.
Alright, that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again on Monday. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
And I'm Angelo Castro III, kapatid. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.